When you Google Airbnb,
Airbnb is dying.
when you turn on the news,
Airbnb collapse is real.
when you check your phone,
Airbnb collapse.
the first thing that you see
Is Airbnb about to collapse?
Extremely consequential.
is Airbnbust. The world is ending. The Airbnb market is absolutely collapsing. But is that what's really happening? In the Airbnb world, there's been a ton of confusion and even more panic. And today I'm here to give you the facts as to whether or not Airbnb is going to be successful in 2023. So if you guys don't know already, my name is Blake Rocha. I go by MrFourToEight, and my Airbnb business will do a little over $2 million in revenue this year. Last month, we did over $340,000 in revenue. With years of experience and tens of millions of dollars of Airbnbs under my belt, today I'm going to answer the question of whether or not Airbnb, and more specifically Airbnb Arbitrage, is worth it in 2023. Now, before we address the concerns of Airbnb and the whole ecosystem, let me explain exactly what Airbnb Arbitrage is. Rather than purchasing a property and listing it on Airbnb, essentially what you do is rent a property and sublease it on Airbnb with the landlord's legal and written agreement. Now, over the past couple of years, this model has become increasingly popular, and many people are left wondering, is this model still going to be viable in 2023 and heading into 2024? Two of the main reasons why Airbnb Arbitrage has grown more and more popular over the last couple of years is because, number one, we're in a rising interest rate market. Just a couple of years ago, the interest rates were sub 3%. Now we're at 7, 8%, sometimes even 9 and 10%, depending on the type of loan that you're getting. AKA, it is much more difficult to buy a house. It requires a lot more capital. The second reason is very simple. Because you're not purchasing a property and because you're only renting a property, you only need a certain amount of startup capital, and most people leverage business credit to fund this business. So technically speaking, you do not need too much capital up front, and you don't need great personal credit in many cases. So this is a very appealing business model to a lot of people. So let's take a look at a timeline. From 2014 to 2015, Airbnb bookings, reservations, homes, everything was trending upward. Very simply put, in 2020, when the world shut down, so did Airbnb revenue for everybody that did Airbnb Arbitrage and the folks who owned these Airbnb properties. But what happened after that was extremely interesting. So if you take a look at the charts, what happened in 2020 and then 2021 as the world began opening up again, from a psychological standpoint, the world had shut down and people were getting cooped up in their houses. And what happens when you coop people up in their houses too long? They get ready to travel and they just want to get out. They want to go to a different city, to a different state, to a different country. So that opens up a massive opportunity for everybody who's doing both Airbnb Arbitrage and owners of Airbnbs. So what happens? You have a set supply of Airbnb properties and an over demand of properties. If you've ever been in an economics class, Economics 101, then you learned about supply and demand. And when there is a restricted supply of properties and a huge demand in properties, that equals an increase in revenue for Airbnb owners and people that do Airbnb Arbitrage. So late 2020, 2021, as well as 2022 have been massive for folks that are doing Airbnb. Now, we are in the year 2023, and what is happening in 2023? Well, they've been claiming that we are having a recession, which has been a little interesting. I'll leave it up to you to decide if we've been in a recession or not. But has travel slowed down quite a bit? Sure, it has slowed down quite a bit. But what's interesting is, for at least myself and many of my colleagues, we're experiencing another record-setting year on Airbnb in 2023. Why is that? Well, people are still continuing to travel. Travel demand has relatively stayed the same. It's gone down just a little bit from last year, but it has not dramatically shifted like many folks are reporting. Now, there was a post that went viral maybe a month or two ago that kind of set this trend on the news of people talking about the Airbnbust. The world is ending. People that are doing Airbnb are absolutely getting smoked. What it showed was bookings as well as revenue were down 50% in many cities like Phoenix, Austin, Miami, a lot of the hot spots. Any spots that you imagine people would go for Airbnb would be down 40 to 50% year over year in revenue. So when that report came out, as you can imagine, news outlets went wild. In fact, they are still talking about this report to this day, even though it was just a tweet. The senior vice president, Jamie Lane, came out with this tweet in response. He said, a viral tweet about STR data. Let's get some facts straight. There is not a collapse in RevPal happening. Is it down in 2023? Yes. Is it down 40%? No. I've pulled the numbers from AirDNA's data set mirroring the analysis done by Nick Gurley. What do we find? The average market listed is seeing a RevPal decrease of negative 3.6%, not negative 40.3%. All of this to say, it's very important to understand where you're getting your data from. Because I don't know about you, but a market being down 3% makes a lot more sense to me than being down 40% in just 1 year. The facts are that in any business, if you do not know how to operate, if you don't have the right assets, if you don't have the right photos, in this case, case, for many people, they don't have the right photos, they don't know how to run their Airbnb business, they don't know how to market, they're in the wrong city. If that's the case and it's your typical mom and pop that are just simply renting out their second home, they are not going to survive against other sharks in the market who've positioned themselves to have better properties, better furnishings, better marketing, better photos, and overall creating a better experience for their guests. Now, let me give you my perspective as somebody who's been operating on Airbnb for 3 years now and have a business that's doing millions and millions of dollars. Some of the markets that I'm in have slowed down, some of them have increased. Some of the properties that performed really well last year are performing not as good this year, and vice versa. There are a lot of strange things happening in this environment, but the one thing that's really, really important, and especially that I always go back to, is I also have long-term rentals. My long-term rentals don't make anywhere near what my short-term rentals make, and it literally is not even close. On average, my short-term rentals make 8 to 10 times more per month in profit versus my long-term rentals. So even if my short-term rentals had another 30-40% lower that they could drop, I would still be making more money running this business than having long-term rentals. That is where I stand on this issue. It gives me a lot of buffer room, a lot of leverage. And the other thing that's important to understand for Airbnb investors, whether you're doing rental arbitrage or purchasing properties, is you want to be going into this Airbnb business knowing what your backup plans are. Are you able to break a lease? Would you be able to sublease your property as a long-term rental? If you owned a property, is it a property that would perform well as a long-term rental as well? Start thinking about these things so that you're prepared for any case scenario, because as we saw in the year 2020, you never know what can happen. Now, if you take a look at the S&P 500 over the last 100 years, on average, it increases by about 8 to 9% per year. But if you look more closely in 10-year increments, you see the market going up and down and up and down and up and down. But as you zoom out and you're looking at the chart, you see the mean is about 8%. With Airbnb and short-term rentals in general becoming increasingly popular, with people wanting to travel for pleasure, for people that have to travel for work, there's been a consistent increase year over year of Airbnb and short-term rentals becoming more and more popular and generating more and more revenue. Now, I want to drill this point home that just like any other market, there's going to be an up market, there's going to be a down market. And right now, we're not in a crashing market. In fact, what we're in is a market that is reverting back to the mean trend line of growth for Airbnbs and short-term rentals in general. Have you ever turned on the news and watched CNBC and seen the market in turmoil? We're crashing and the sky is falling, only to find out 2 to 3 weeks later that the market is skyrocketing, everything is back to normal, we're in an uptrend, and everything is going to the moon. Well, that is no different than what's happening in the Airbnb market and also in the real estate market in general. Guys, news reporters are sensationalists. You know as well as I do, their job is to get clicks. And the only way to get clicks is to get people to engage with clickbait headlines. Who would want to read an article that says, Airbnb having a small correction in many popular markets? Who's gonna read that? How about Airbnbust, the rise and fall of Airbnbs as we interview a homeless previous Airbnb host? Everybody's reaching for clicks and you will get much more engagement doing this. So as a sidebar to this, I wanna remind you of a Warren Buffett quote that stuck with me for a very long time. He said, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. Think about that for 2 seconds. When others are zigging, you have to zag. And vice versa, when others zag, it's time to zig. So in this market, when folks are scared, when they don't want to be acquiring Airbnbs, when they're no longer looking for leases, when they're not looking for properties to buy, where is the opportunity? Is it to follow them or to be a contrarian and find the opportunities that are out there? Because in every bull market, there's an opportunity. In every bear market, there's an opportunity. We're somewhere in this funky zone where we're probably going to go back to 2018, 2019 numbers. So one of the best pieces of advice that I can give to folks that are doing their research and determining whether or not an Airbnb property is going to be right for them, whether they do rental arbitrage or purchase a property, is to not take in the 2020 through 2022 numbers into account. If you try to run comps off of numbers from the last couple of years, then you're going to get skewed results and be overestimating how much money your property is going to make on the short-term rental websites. But if you look back at the average numbers of 2016 to 2019, look at the average growth and use those numbers, you're going to end up with a much better benchmark as to how much money your property will be able to make as an Airbnb. I'm somebody who puts my money where my mouth is. And so over the past couple of months, both myself and my students have been acquiring multiple Airbnb properties by both purchasing and doing rental arbitrage. Many people are afraid during this time. They're afraid because of high interest rates. They're afraid because of what they see on the news. They're afraid because they don't know if they're going to be able to keep their job. But those opportunists, those people that see that there's real potential out there right now to acquire properties and not have as much competition to go against, and have the opportunity to either negotiate lower rent or negotiate a lower purchase price on a property because it's been sitting on the market for X amount of months. Those are the people that I'm seeing are being extremely successful. Let me use a great example. One of my students, Josh Lewis, just acquired his 5th Airbnb over the course of the last 6 months. Now, last month he did over $26,000 in revenue and took home, I believe, $12,400 in profit, which is absolutely insane in the middle of summer, especially when a lot of his properties are in the Phoenix and Scottsdale area. Now, myself, being somebody who is an opportunist, I'd been stacking cash away for almost a year, waiting for an opportunity to arise. Now, I've done the Airbnb arbitrage thing. I've scaled the Airbnb arbitrage portfolio, but when there's an opportunity to buy as well, I'm on the hunt. And so I just closed on my first new build in Tennessee, in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and that property is going to do, on average, we're thinking about $280,000 to $300,000 per year in revenue. Now, I closed at an interest rate that most people would be afraid of, 7.75%. And I had to pay a point on that for those of you guys that are familiar with, lending. Is it ideal? No. Do I want to be paying an extra $4,000 per month now that I wasn't paying a year ago? No. But I see the opportunity to make money, get another property on my belt that's going to be a cash flowing asset to me, that's going to be a tax deduction, and most importantly, over the next couple of years, because I have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, I can refinance whenever I'd like to when the rates go lower. So if you're watching this video right now, if you're listening to what I'm saying and you're saying, hey, that's me, I'm the contrarian thinker, I'm the person who's been on the sidelines waiting for an opportunity to take action, then I have something for you that I think is very worthwhile. It's 100% free. Down below in the description, you're gonna see a link to my free Airbnb workshop. Now, all it is 1 hour with me. It's 100% free, as I call it, free 99. It's a great opportunity for you to learn more and dive a little bit deeper into this whole Airbnb thing, into this Airbnb arbitrage thing, and just figure out if it's a good fit for you. I've been successful in this business model. I've coached thousands of students now, and I want to just give this to you for free. So click the link below in the description, and hopefully we'll see you there in this next Thursday. Guys, I'm new to this YouTube scene, but I'm not new to the making money scene, and I'm definitely not new to helping other people make money. So if you could do me just one favor before you leave this video, since you've made it all the way to the end, click like, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next video.